Imagine standing at the edge of your worst nightmare. A mother, a warrior, a woman who's faced death in war zones across the globe, now standing over her son's casket. This is her story, a story of love, loss, and a moment so shocking it will leave you speechless. General Elena Voss, a hero who survived the chaos of war, never imagined she'd face a gun on the sacred ground of Arlington at her own son's funeral. How did it come to this? What pushed a grieving mother to her knees, hands in the air, with a weapon pointed at her heart? Stay with us, because this story will grip you, break you, and leave you questioning everything. You won't believe what happens next. The morning was suffocating, the kind of gray that pressed down on your chest, as if the sky itself was mourning. Arlington National Cemetery stretched out in silent reverence, its rows of white headstones a stark reminder of sacrifice. General Elena Voss, a 3-star general in the United States Army, stood at the edge of Section 60, the resting place for those lost in the nation's most recent wars. She was no stranger to this place. She'd folded flags, saluted caskets, and whispered condolences to grieving families. But today was different. Today, the casket draped in stars and stripes held her son, Captain Nathan Voss, just 29 years old, stolen by an IED during a routine patrol in Mosul. Elena wore her dress uniform, the deep blue jacket adorned with medals that told the story of her life. Desert Storm, Afghanistan, Syria. Each ribbon was a chapter of survival, of leadership, of sacrifice. Nathan had always loved seeing her in it. "Mom," he'd said during their last video call, his grin wide despite the crackle of the connection. "When my time comes, I want you in your stars, standing tall." So here she was, fulfilling his wish, her shoulders squared, her face a mask of stoic resolve. But inside, she was crumbling, her heart a battlefield of grief. The black SUV rolled to a stop near the gravesite. Elena sat in the back, wedged between her younger sister, Clara, and Nathan's godfather, Master Sergeant James "Jim" Tanner, a grizzled veteran who'd served alongside Elena in Kabul. Her hands trembled as she clutched the funeral program, Nathan's face beaming from the cover in his fatigues, his eyes bright with the promise of a future that would never come. "I don't know if I can do this," Elena whispered, her voice barely audible, drained of its usual command. "You've faced worse," Jim murmured, his voice rough with emotion. "But that doesn't make this right." The car door opened, and Elena stepped out, her polished heels clicking against the pavement. A few soldiers nearby snapped to attention, recognizing her rank. She was a legend, the first woman to rise so high in her field, a trailblazer who'd shattered ceilings and silenced doubters. But today, she wasn't a general. She was a mother, walking toward a hole in the ground that would swallow her world. A local police officer pacing near the parked cars, his mirrored sunglasses glinting despite the overcast sky. His hand rests on his holster, his posture tense. What's he doing here? Why is he watching her? Elena's breath caught as she noticed him. A local cop, his patrol car parked crookedly, engine still running. His name tag read Officer Daniel Holt. He was young, maybe mid-20s, with a buzz cut and a stance that screamed authority. His mirrored sunglasses hid his eyes, but his gaze was locked on her, sharp and unyielding. A knot of unease twisted in Elena's stomach. He wasn't part of the honor guard. He was just traffic control, an outsider to this sacred moment. Yet something about him felt wrong. "Hey," his voice cut through the quiet, sharp and jarring. "Ma'am, I need to see some ID." Elena blinked, her mind struggling to process the words. Surely, he wasn't talking to her. She was in full dress uniform, her stars gleaming on her shoulders, surrounded by mourners and soldiers. But Holt took a step closer, his hand now firmly on the grip of his pistol. "I'm talking to you," he said, louder this time, his tone edged with aggression. The crowd stirred, a ripple of confusion passing through the mourners. Elena's sister, Clara, gasped softly, her hand tightening on Elena's arm. Jim stepped forward, his hands raised in a calming gesture, but his eyes were hard. "Son, you're making a mistake," he said. "This is General Elena Voss." She's here for her son's funeral. Holt's jaw tightened, and then the unthinkable happened. He drew his pistol, leveling it at Elena's chest. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Soldiers from the honor guard tensed, their hands twitching toward their own weapons, but their commanding officer's sharp glance held them in place. Elena froze, her hands slowly rising into the air, her heart pounding like a war drum. "I am General Elena Voss," she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her insides. "I am unarmed, in my dress uniform, here to bury my son. You are making a terrible mistake." Holt's grip on the gun didn't waver. "Drop to the ground now," he barked, his voice shaking with a mix of fear and defiance. The world seemed to stop. Elena, who had faced insurgents in Fallujah, dodged sniper fire in Kandahar, and stared down warlords in Somalia, now stood with a gun pointed at her on American soil. At her son's funeral, her mind raced, but her training took over. She spoke with the calm authority that had carried her through decades of service. "I am an unarmed United States Army general. You're pointing a weapon at a mother trying to bury her child." Holt's face twisted, his sunglasses reflecting the gray sky. "I don't care what kind of costume you're wearing. Get on the ground, or I'll put you there." Jim took a cautious step forward, his voice low but firm. "Officer, that's General Voss. Lower your weapon. Now, back off," Holt shouted, swinging the gun toward Jim. Clara let out a sob, clinging to the SUV's door. A young soldier from the honor guard, Private First Class Sarah Nguyen, shifted her weight, ready to intervene, but her commanding officer's glare stopped her. The air crackled with tension, every mourner holding their breath, waiting for the situation to explode. Elena's heart hammered, but her voice remained steady. "Officer, I'm going to reach into my coat pocket and show you my military ID." Slowly. "You reach, I shoot," Holt snapped, his voice cold and certain. Mourners backed away, pulling children behind them, their whispers cutting through the silence like knives. Two women, both veterans who'd served under Elena, pulled out their phones, recording the scene. The crowd was a mix of shock and outrage, but no one dared move. An elderly veteran in a wheelchair, his chest covered in medals, shouted, "What in God's name is wrong with you?" "That's General Voss." Holt didn't flinch, his tunnel vision fixed on Elena. "Turn around. On your knees. Hands on your head." Elena closed her eyes for a single, agonizing second. She'd survived ambushes, negotiated with hostile forces, and buried countless soldiers. But this was a wound unlike any other. Slowly, she began to lower herself to the asphalt, not out of fear, but to protect the people around her. She wouldn't let her son's funeral become a bloodbath. A female officer sprinting to the scene, her face a mask of determination. Who is she? Can she stop this madness before it's too late? Lieutenant Sofia Alvarez, a seasoned officer stationed at the cemetery's main gate, had seen the commotion from 50 yards away. Her heart dropped as she recognized Elena's uniform and the gun pointed at her. "Holt, holster your weapon now," Sophia screamed, her boots pounding against the pavement as she closed the distance. Holt didn't move, his gun still trained on Elena. "Stay back," he shouted, his voice cracking. Sophia didn't hesitate. "Holster it. That's a 3-star general." She was in his face now, her eyes blazing. When Holt still refused, she acted on instinct. Her hands slammed against his arm, knocking the pistol from his grip. It clattered to the ground, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Holt staggered back, reaching for the fallen weapon, but Sophia was faster. She twisted his arm behind his back in a control hold, her voice a low growl. "You're done." Other officers rushed in, pulling a struggling Holt away. Private Nguyen hurried to Elena's side, helping her to her feet. "Ma'am, it's over," she said softly. "We've got you." Elena stood, her legs unsteady, her hands still trembling. She looked out at the sea of shocked faces, the silent tears, and Nathan's casket, still waiting. The sacred moment had been stolen, shattered into 1,000 pieces. But if she thought the nightmare was over, she was wrong. This was only the beginning. As Elena straightens her uniform, a young boy, Nathan's godson, only 10 years old, steps forward from the crowd, clutching a single sunflower, Nathan's favorite flower. His small voice breaks the silence. "And Elena, is this what heroes have to go through?" Within minutes, the videos were everywhere. Cell phone footage of Officer Holt pointing a gun at a kneeling General Elena Voss spread like wildfire across social media. By 10:15 a.m., Arlington was swarming with police, military brass, and news vans. The mourners, who had come to honor a fallen soldier, couldn't shake the image of a mother in uniform brought to her knees on the worst day of her life. Elena was ushered into a small tent for privacy, her hands shaking so badly she couldn't remove her hat. Jim stood beside her, his face a mask of silent rage. Outside, Private and Gwen argued with two local cops. Your officer threatened to execute a grieving mother. You think traffic duty is going to cut it on the evening news? In the back of a squad car, Holt sat cuffed, his face blank. He muttered to himself, over and over, she didn't belong here. She wasn't acting right. He never asked about Elena or her son. Inside the tent, Elena's voice was a raw whisper. He saw my skin before he saw my stars. Clara took her hand, tears streaming down her face. He didn't break you, Elena. He didn't have to, Elena replied, her voice breaking. He broke this day. This was supposed to be for Nathan. A young soldier who'd served with Nathan, Specialist Mia Carter, was live streaming outside, her voice trembling with rage. This is what we deal with. You could be a general, a mother, at your own son's funeral, and they still see a threat. I'd followed General Voss into hell, and he treated her like a criminal. By noon, millions had seen the video. Hashtags like #JusticeForVoss trended worldwide. The funeral resumed, but it was a hollow ceremony, delayed by nearly 2 hours. Elena placed her hand on Nathan's casket, whispering words only he could hear before walking away, her heart full of glass. As Elena leaves the cemetery, a stranger in civilian clothes watches from a distance, his face obscured. He pulls out a phone and types a message. She's stronger than we thought. Who is he? What does he want with Elena? By 3 p.m., the story dominated every news outlet. The police department issued a sterile statement. We are aware of an incident. The officer has been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. No apology, no mention of Elena's rank or her grief. The backlash was swift and fierce. A senator tweeted, "An incident? It's a national disgrace." A retired general, Elena's mentor, went on live television, her voice cracking. I have to tell America that one of our finest was treated like a criminal while burying her child. This isn't a mistake. It's a symptom of something deeply broken. Silent protesters gathered outside the police station, many in uniform, holding signs. She served. He drew a gun. Elena stayed at Clara's house, hidden from the world, but the world came to her. Banners appeared on the cemetery fence. Letters poured in from Gold Star families. I'm sorry the uniform didn't protect you, one read. On the fourth day, Elena spoke to a private gathering of military families. No cameras allowed, or so she thought. Someone recorded her words. I didn't cry when they told me Nathan was gone. I didn't cry when they handed me his flag. But I cried when that officer pointed a gun at me. Not because I was afraid, but because I realized the uniform I gave my life to couldn't stop him from seeing me as a threat. Her words ignited a firestorm. The Department of Justice launched a federal investigation. The governor called it a grotesque betrayal. Officer Holt remained silent, his union refusing to comment. Elena discovers a letter Nathan wrote before his final deployment, hidden in a box of his belongings. It reads, Mom, if anything happens to me, don't let them break you. You're my hero. Tears falling for the first time as she whispers, I'm trying, Nate. 6 months later, a packed federal courtroom became the nation's stage. Military personnel in dress uniforms filled the rows, alongside veterans and reporters. Elena sat with her family, dressed in civilian clothes. No stars, no medals, just a mother. Holt entered in a gray suit, his face devoid of remorse. The prosecution played the video, the gray morning coming to life on the screen. Holt's voice rang out, hands where I can see them. The room tensed as Elena, in her uniform, stood with hands raised, unwavering even as the gun stayed on her. Lieutenant Sofia Alvarez testified first. He refused to listen. I had to knock the gun from his hands to stop him from shooting an unarmed mother. The defense tried to spin it. So, you used force on a fellow officer? Sofia's response was razor sharp. I stopped a tragedy. Call it what you want. Jim's testimony was quieter, but no less powerful. I've seen enemy fire, but I've never felt more helpless than watching General Voss treated like nothing. Then came the bombshell, Holt's internal affairs record. 12 complaints for excessive force, including an eerily similar incident. A black army captain held at gunpoint in uniform, dismissed as a misunderstanding. The prosecution displayed Nathan's photo. General Voss came to bury her son. Instead, she faced a weapon, not for what she did, but for what Holt saw. When Elena took the stand, the room fell silent. I didn't come for revenge, she said. I came for accountability. I don't want another mother to kneel in fear. She looked at Holt. I'm not a symbol. I am a mother. And because of you, my son's funeral was stolen. The jury took 4 hours. The verdict, guilty on all counts. The judge's sentence was clear. Officer Holt, you were sentenced to life in prison without parole. The room was silent, the weight of justice settling like dust. As Elena leaves the courthouse, the same stranger from the cemetery watches again, this time closer. He whispers to someone on his phone. She's not done yet. We need to act. What's his plan? Is Elena still in danger? After the trial, Elena thought she could find peace, but the stranger's presence lingered in her mind. She returned to Arlington one quiet morning before the gates opened, carrying a folding chair and a sunflower. She sat by Nathan's grave, the wind rustling through the grass, and whispered, I'm still fighting, Nate. But the fight wasn't over. A week later, Clara received an anonymous letter at her home, where Elena was staying. It contained a single photo, Elena kneeling at Arlington, Holt's gun aimed at her. Written in red ink were the words, You won the battle, but the war isn't over. Elena's blood ran cold. Was this a threat? A taunt? Or something more? She contacted Sofia, now a trusted friend, who traced the letter to a local group with ties to Holt supporters. The investigation uncovered a network of individuals who saw Elena's case as a rallying cry against woke reforms in law enforcement. They viewed her as a symbol to be silenced. Elena refused to hide. She began speaking publicly, not just about her experience, but about the systemic issues it exposed. Her speeches drew crowds, veterans, families, activists, who saw her as a beacon of resilience. But with every word, the threats grew. Anonymous calls, vandalism at Clara's home, and cryptic messages left at Nathan's grave. At a rally, a young woman approaches Elena, claiming to be Nathan's fiancée, a secret he'd kept to protect her from the dangers of his deployments. She hands Elena a ring Nathan planned to give her, saying he wanted us to take care of each other. Elena, overwhelmed, embraces her, finding a new purpose in honoring Nathan's love. Elena's fight became a movement. She founded the Nathan Voss Foundation, dedicated to supporting Gold Star families and advocating for accountability in law enforcement. The foundation funded scholarships for children of fallen soldiers and provided legal aid for veterans facing discrimination. Elena's speeches, raw and unfiltered, inspired millions, but she never forgot the cost. 1 year after the trial, Elena returned to Arlington for a private ceremony. She stood by Nathan's grave, now joined by his fiancée, Lily, and their small circle of family and friends. They planted a sunflower garden nearby, a symbol of hope and resilience. As the sun broke through the clouds, Elena felt Nathan's presence, a quiet strength guiding her forward. But the stranger's shadow lingered. Sophia's investigation revealed he was a former colleague of Holt's, now leading a fringe group planning to disrupt Elena's work. In a final confrontation, Elena faced him at a public event, her voice unwavering. You can't break me, she said. I've survived worse than you. The crowd erupted in support, and the man was arrested, his plans unraveling. This wasn't just Elena's story. It's the story of every mother who's lost a child, every soldier who's served, every person who's been judged before they're seen. She stood at her son's grave, a gun in her face, and she realized something. A fight for justice, for dignity, for love, it never ends. But neither does our strength. To everyone watching, I ask you this. Look in the mirror. What do you see? What will you do to make this world a place where no mother has to kneel in fear? Nathan's light lives on in every act of courage, every stand for what's right. Will you carry that light with Elena?